T-Mill, come out and play.
Play it loud.
Hi, this is Kate Smith, and I'm at the Maitland Conservatory, and I'm in tune with T-Mill.
We're changing the status quo one voice at a time, through music, edutainment, children, and awareness. We're progressing and preserving the culture through real conversations with people who've had real success. Multicultural artists and musicians, models, entrepreneurs, innovators, and activists. This is Paradox East, and you are in tune with T-Mill. Powered by the MaitlandConservatory.org.
Thank you for listening to In Tune with T-Mill.
Here you go. Welcome everyone to a special edition of In Tune with T-Mill. I'm your host T-Mill, live from the Rocket City. You will now be encouraged and entertained. Nothing will change until you change something. We are here to change the status quo. And this interview, this episode, it has been a long time in the making. A good friend of mine, someone that the power of the internet in meeting people and connecting with people, making the connection, engaging with one another. You never know where you're going to find yourself. You'll meet people from all walks of life. And throughout podcasting, I met a young woman who is in the music industry and specifically in jazz, and her frequency, her vibe, you know, just her likes and the musicians that she's come across is quite interesting and has brought me a lot of great interviews in meeting musicians. So today I want to talk about her journey. I want to talk about her experiences. And for those of you that love jazz, those of you that love stories and love the musicianship and some of the things that go along with music promotion and everything jazz, all things jazz, this episode is for you. And for those that want to discover what jazz is, what it means to be a jazz musician, or just have an introduction into this world, this episode is for you. So on this episode of In Tune with T-Mill, my very special guest is the beautiful, the talented, the just excellent all around woman who is Kate Smith. How are you, Kate Smith?
I am, wow, after that, I'm really fine, T. Thank you.
Absolutely. And again, like we were talking before the episode, you know, you and I have known each other for a few years by way of the internet. And
that's right.
This is our first conversation, you know, speaking with one another. And we've exchanged correspondence and emails and kept in touch that way. But this is officially our first hanging out and talking with one another.
That's right. About time, huh?
Absolutely. So let's talk about, we're here to talk about jazz and your experiences and all things jazz. When did you first hear this thing called jazz, and why has it become so close to you?
Well, let's see. I'm going to date myself with this one. Pre-TV, as an adolescent, we had the piano, and my dad was a clarinet player. My mom played the piano. We did 4-part harmony with the 4 kids, and I have 3 brothers. And yeah, with the clarinet, my dad loved Benny Goodman. My parents, their dating song was Stardust. So, you know, there's Hoagie and there's Benny. But I didn't really identify it as jazz at that time. I would say through a life journey of musical involvement, there was old-timey, there was gospel, there was an R&B band I had one time, and then I started doing trio work and started working the standards, and at that point, I bought a piece of property, and it was in Chicago on Division Street, ghetto at that point, affordable, and it was like a bar and a dance hall and an old Schlitz building, tea exchange with a 16-room boarding house. So here I am, like with half a city block, and I decided that I was going to open a jazz club because I had started towards the standards in my singing career and thought I really need to come to know jazz. So that's how I really got hooked on it, opening a club.
Wow. And there's been, over the years, I'm sure you've seen clubs come and go or venues come and go. And for here in Huntsville, there's a resurgence. There's this big boom of music and entertainment that we're beginning to build the infrastructure for entertainment and to sustain in a place for music, and that's going to be exciting in the next few years. So hopefully you guys keep your eyes and your ears open to Huntsville, Alabama, to see some of the great things that are happening.
Oh, that's awesome. We'll certainly let my musicians, my artists, know that there's a possibility to play.
Oh, there's always a possibility. You just find the place, or you let me know, and we can make it happen to, find some good food, a nice climate, and make it happen. Because anytime you've got a good climate, good music, good food, there's nothing else to complain about. You've got everything you need.
There you go. Very true.
So, did you play any instruments in school?
I had a natural talent for the piano. I started in the classical vein and got my fingers wrapped because I was playing by ear more than learning. And but I didn't take it to the fullest. I guess I regret that. But yeah, piano. I keep going back every now and again just for myself, but the voice became more of a performance instrument.
Excellent. And what's been the biggest change that now we're talking about promotion, and promotion is a part of marketing, or marketing is a part of promotion. I'm not quite sure. The landscape that we're in now, there's a lot of things that I'm sure you've seen that have changed over the years. Radio to now streaming, or television to now internet video. So what's been the biggest change you've experienced in marketing jazz from the 90s to now?
Good that you say the 90s, because let's see, I opened a club in 89, and then in 99 I moved on to promotion, working with a couple labels, and then loving radio campaigns and striking out on that for the next 17 years now. I would say the biggest change has definitely been the internet, streaming, digital. We went from crying about losing those magnificent vinyl albums with all the great read on it to the little booklets, and now it's like, wow, digital downloads. That would be the biggest change.
And how do you feel about those changes? Do you feel that they've helped? Do you feel that they're missing anything? How do you feel about those changes?
At a personal level, I know, you can get WAV, you can get MP3, you can get the compression of your choice. But honestly, when a potential client sends me a download to listen to, and then I get the CD, the CD just always has more depth, and it's almost like, what did I hear the first time? What was missing there? You know, I thought I listened to it on the strongest least compression, and yet they always. I'm sorry. I need the CD.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm not a fan of those downloads. Although, on the other hand, when the U.S. Post Office has its biannual rate increase, it's getting very expensive for the mailing, you know. So to produce a CD and then have to pay the cost of U.S. postage, yeah, I try and group a couple together and let them share that postage cost. And now sending international, we pretty much have to tell them, I'm sorry, you're going to have to take download. It's just getting too expensive.
And I think there's room, or do you think there's room for a conversation or some type of change where, and I understand things are changing and things are starting to fizzle out as far as mailing or letters. You know, people hardly write letters anymore. They email or they text.
Oh, they text.
Exactly. Or people, they don't send CDs anymore. They send digital downloads. So do you think there's room for a conversation to maybe find a common ground to where I, as well as you, I'm sure would love to see the Postal Service still here in 20 or 30, 40 years to keep people's jobs, to keep that industry going, because that's important. Do you think there's a conversation or a way, you know, or room for an industry like the record industry or the music industry to say, hey, let's find something to where we can help sustain your industry and help sustain us without raising rates on each other, or, you know, again, being able to keep you guys around for a while. Do you think there's room for that to still exist, or is it kind of like we're phasing out of this? This is just going to go eventually, and we'll have to move on to something else?
Well, I think we have to look at the fact that we baby boomers are retiring left and right, and the post office has been a really tremendous job opportunity for really good pay and benefits. And now, you know, they're getting hit hard because this is a huge generation that's retiring, and they have the commitment. So I don't know that they really have much leeway to have conversation. I can project that the stations, because they still prefer, for the most part in the jazz world, to receive a CD versus a download, that they've lightened up and are being more aware of the Echo wallet, the sleeve for mailing purposes, to make it lighter, where before, if it didn't have a substantial spine that you could see on a shelf from 6 feet away, then you got lost. But so I can see that within our industry and working with the stations, there's been that compromise to keep the CD coming. But as far as having some benefit conversation, mutual support with the post office, I don't see it.
Yeah, I just feel like there's enough money in the music industry for them to say, hey guys, I know rates are increasing, but here's a couple of dollars so we can still, you know, mail these things to you or help sustain this part of the industry. But of course, the music industry is trying to save money as well, so they're pushing more toward downloads as opposed to mailing out things. So let's go back to the Bop Shop. And was there a memorable moment that, you know, just any moment that you can think of where it comes to mind and you think, wow, that's pretty surreal, or I can't believe that happened, you know, at the Bop Shop when you think about it?
Yeah. Oh man, there are just so many. But I would say so I opened a club, right, to learn jazz, to get it through osmosis. Chris Heim, who used to be at WBEZ, said one night, Kate, you know, you could have taken a course at Columbia. It would have been a lot easier after 3 bankruptcies to keep the club, open the doors open for 10 years. But man, Buster Williams, the bass player, called looking for a gig. He's out on tour, and he says, "You don't know who I am, do you?" And I said, "No, I don't. I opened a club to learn. Tell me all about yourself." And man, we became hard, fast friends, and he played my club annually. And there was that first night when he came and played the Bop Shop. It was like the cosmic egg cracked. It was so surreal. I'll never forget that. Yeah.
And that's what it's all about. Memories, and while we're going through these or experiencing these, we don't think of them as, oh, I'm going to remember this in 30 years. You know, that's what's so special and so important about creating these memories. And you mentioned WBEZ, so that's Chicago, right?
That's Chicago. That used to be the #1 jazz station in Chicago. Now it's WDCB out in Glen Ellen, and they do a fabulous job. But at the time it was BEZ. Mm-hmm.
Excellent. Love WBEZ. So shout out to WBEZ and all the stations that are out here still pounding the pavement, still championing and keeping the flag up for indie artists, mainstream artists, and still keeping this industry alive. If you could change... Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, you asked for memories, and now they're starting to flow. I used to do live simulcasts out of the club. They'd pull the van up and hook things up, and once a month we'd do a live simulcast from the club on WBEZ radio. And then, I think it was 1999, I was the Midwest hookup with WBGO for New Year's.
That's what I'm talking about. And now the simulcasts, they've, and some of them still and they're still around for some of the bigger stations and even some of the mom and pop stations. But then if you think about it, now it's went from this huge van to a laptop or a small phone that you just carry in your pocket, and now you can just, connect to the station or to the entire world from something as small as a water bottle, Right. Yeah. So if you could change anything in radio promotion, what would it be? From your experiences and from the hurdles that you've crossed, what is one of those things that come to mind that you would like to change or see be taken away from radio promotion? Maybe add, or something to be added, something to be taken away. Just a change that you would like to see.
I would like to see it re-added. One of the greatest challenges is I send out 300 CDs. We make specific call times, follow-up on the phone. We do email tracking, and we have to search websites. We have to go to Spinatron. It's like we're in this little rowboat with all of these various types of schools of fish out there. They're even putting playlists on Facebook, and so it's a major challenge, just keeping up with who's reporting their play where and how. Where I would say 5-6 years ago now, there were these magnificent geeks who wanted to support their favorite local band. And when they got looking at things, they realized that the hardest thing to do was to track their airplay. And so they solicited, I don't know what, ASCAP or BMI, one of the big collecting agencies and got them to sponsor their computer program work. And they developed a program. I don't know if you remember this, T. It was called Media Guide. And Media Guide had real-time airplay tracking. They set up, I say antennas, I don't know, it was probably some sort of computer thing in the top 150 markets. And when we'd send a CD out, you know, because I work emerging artists for the most part. I want to give the hand up, right? And so you send them a CD, and they get 1, 2, 5, 10 spins, but they don't always let us know that. When we had Media Guide real-time airplay, man, we were able to give truth and lading. It was such a joy to be able to say, this is documented spins. We knew what track they played. We knew what time of day they played it. It was awesome. Awesome.
And you would think by now they would have expounded on that. They would have, you know, kept it around or just even made it more simple and more easy because of all the advantages that there are in radio and in technology. So I think, just like you said, one thing that I would like to see is just a simplicity, yet, you know, documentation and a track record, or just something that can capture all this data, all this information, as I know we can, but also do it in a simple, you know, way that everyone, it just makes too much sense. It's too much like right.
Oh yeah. After we lost Media Guide, I went from being a solo act with this promotion business to hiring 4 employees.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, the great thing about that is, unfortunately, you know, it's not around, but then that added a job for someone, you know, and hopefully one of those, you know, people will say, hey, you know what? I want to create this Media Guide again, or something to where we could get back to it being simple. So talking about jazz, and I forgot to ask you this earlier, for me, jazz is expression. It's just a different form of, you know, expression or art, you know, just the way you feel, or the way you want to express yourself, or you want to find a common ground, or to relate to someone, you know, music that you can relate to. And jazz is just one of those things where, you know, I think if you walk into a room, I don't think you can have an argument with someone if the right jazz musician is playing. You just can't argue with someone over great jazz music. It's just not going to happen. Jazz music just has a power and a rich just history and vibration. It's just like unlike anything I've ever heard before. And the great thing about it is it's different from rock, or it's different from hip hop, or it's different from all these other genres of music and it can stand alone on its own. It's just great, you know, and I think a lot of people can relate to it, as opposed to, you know, not even other forms, because music just translate, you know, you can find, I think, and I'm kind of optimistic, I think you can find a great song in every genre of music that you can relate to. So what does jazz mean to you? What does, you know, and I joke with my kids all the time about jazz, and I say jazz with that whisper, that jazz, or I don't know why. It's just that I do.
The jazzmatazz.
Right. So what does jazz mean to you?
Yeah, jazz to me, that, you know, when I started the club, a friend who became my booking agent partner there for a while, he took me to hear Monk and Art Blakey, you know, because I was trying to access it through Betty Carter. and, and then we went to see Sun Ra, you know, so it was like those incremental, accessible. Someone once said jazz is like the blues that's gone to college or grown up or something of that nature. And that's the beauty of it. We see it on TV commercials, you know, when they want to be sophisticated, they want to sell cars and they want to have background music, you know, on romantic things. And yet, you know, the long established cries, jazz is dead. It's like, yeah, right. I don't think so. You just, it changed. When we talked about change, you know, it's like, with the avant-garde, you could always count on the college stations to just pick up on anything that stretched outside the pocket and really got expressive and experimental and improvisational, because the college kids were making identity, you know, and they wanted to be out there. They wanted to be freeform. And we've lost that. So, oh man, jazz, it covers the whole gambit. And you go from vocal to Latin to big band to swing to dance, you know. I mean, jazz, it's your soul, and it's the most inspirational and creative outlet that I know of.
Absolutely. Now, with your projects and some of the projects that you're working on as of late, can you tell us about 3 of your recent projects, or just maybe something that's made a resurgence that you're working on that you've seen is picked up? What are, you know, a couple of projects that you would love, because I'm sure you would love to share all of them, but if there were 3 that you could, because we have to keep it simple for everyone. We have to tell them, okay, look, we got 3 for you, and then let them discover and dig after that. What are 3 projects that come to mind, or maybe 3 recents that you're working on?
Okay, well, let's see. Right now, we've got Billy Jones, Three's a Crowd, and it's duos. Every single track is with, Billy's a drummer, and then every track is with a different instrument master. And man, they just connect and have dialogue that you forget that you're listening to duos, right? And then we've got Tom Bruner. He's been in the industry as a producer, a writer for eons, and he wanted to leave a legacy, honoring the CD's titled "Homage to a Hero." It's Tom Bruner playing the ballads of Wes Montgomery, and it's really being embraced. There's just, you know, something about the wonderful orchestrated strings that we don't necessarily hear now, and that guitar, that mellow, beautiful, rich guitar. Dave Stryker. Now, Dave, he's totally awesome, speaking of guitarists. And we've got 2 out right now that are on his Strike Zone label. His B3 player for many years, many projects, Jarrett Gold, now has his own CD on Dave's label. And McClinty Hunter Jr.
Say that 3 times fast.
Great drummer. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Also on Strike Zone. So there you have it.
Excellent. And shout out to Dave Stryker. His music comes to mind, and I've got a couple CDs from him, and one of those that I go back to often, and that finds its way in a lot of my playlists that I have. And when So one conversation that I've thought about is very important, and that I hope people can continue to have, and that it needs a lot more light. We need to talk about this a lot more, and people need to, I would hope, take it a lot seriously, and it gets the respect and recognition and the light that it deserves. How important is art and music programs in schools? Because as you know, whenever we're in another election year, and well, every year is an election year, but there's a lot of elections coming up this year. And one of the first things I think a lot of people go to, and they start talking about where can we cut? Where can we save money? What do we need to get rid of? We need money for this. And they start looking for things. Art and music are usually the first thing that some people look at and to get rid of, or to cut and to eliminate from schools, because they think it's not important, when it actually generates not only revenue, but a career for children, for music schools, and commerce around the city. You have music schools. So it does a lot. But what are your thoughts on art and music programs in schools? Are those important?
Oh man, when you look at our school system, it is so failing our youth, and it breaks my heart to even think that they would consider dropping art and music. But when you look at the big scheme, it's like the education system that we have now, they do not want you trained to have conceptual thought. They do not want you to look behind the smoke and mirrors. Therefore, if it's going to be a creative source that's going to help you to expand in self-empowerment, they're going to drop it. That's what, sadly, our school systems have evolved to. And yeah, I see private schools and homeschooling. If I had kids, that'd definitely be the way that I would go, just to make sure that they learn how to think for themselves and not be trained to get out there and be slaves.
Right. Because again, now shout out to all the schools that still have programs, or that are empowering education in institutions to have music programs. So shout out to y'all, and great job. Keep it up.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Make sure you guys keep voting for people that are making those happen, because there's a lot of people that are losing that battle. But shout out to everyone that is keeping these programs around. But again, to break it down for you guys, music programs are teaching children, one, it gives them an outlet. Two, it gives them just a way to express themselves, because they could be going through problems. They could be just exploring their imagination, getting to know themselves. 2, 3, they need a break from just 7 hours of instruction of all this glorious, interesting stuff that you guys are teaching all day long. And third, or fifth, sixth, whatever number we're on, they've got to learn this from somewhere. And then there's somewhere in town that teaches them how to do this. That's a job. And when they teach them how to do this, they can go on and use this as a career to go travel the world, or to work in music, work in film, work in radio promotions. It gives them jobs, and then it generates money. It generates just so much more. So these are seeds that music programs are planting. Art programs like theater and things like that. Music is everywhere. You're not going to get rid of it, and the world would be pretty dull. I would move to Pluto if there just wasn't any music. If I knew what music was, and I would move. But you have to have these programs. Now, one other thing that I saw this year, and I'm curious as to your thought. Just a couple more questions. I'm seeing that retail stores will soon stop carrying CDs this year. A lot of them are moving towards, I guess, downloads again, and just not finally, but it's come to that point, unfortunately, where your Best Buys, your Walmarts, Targets, these retail stores are starting to, are no longer going to have CDs in their stores. How important is it for jazz artists to tour or have merchandise to kind of combat that, to, because again, that's another form of revenue or another stream of revenue, physical copies. But how important is it for them to create merchandise or to have physicals at their shows, even if no one or a few people like me and you love listening to CDs? How important is it for them to tour and create those different streams of revenue as opposed to just music online and in store?
Yeah, well, touring has always been the number one sales option, stream. Yeah, revenue stream. I would say getting my artist play on cable TV jazz, on Sirius XM jazz, getting a couple second mention on NPR, All Things Considered or something like that. Those will sell CDs and downloads. But, man, it took a real hit with local radio not generating the sales. I mean, when I was growing up, it was like there was a tight schedule, and it was like you listened to the radio and you heard the latest hits, and you went to the record store or even the supermarket at the checkout line and you could get the 45s, right? But that's history. that's bygones. And the only place generating sales pretty much for the musician, sales that are viable, are the touring gigs. So we really need to have a grant funding source to be able to keep all of our musicians out there on the road, touring, playing venues, subsidies, support. When I had my club in Chicago, I would pick up touring musicians, and I could make the band, but I'd always lose on the hotel, so there has to be some sort of sponsorship, community support to be able to strike a balance so that we can keep our musicians out there and performing, because music is made to be heard, and if it's not going to be happening so much on local radio in the return of marketable sales, then we need to get them performing where the sales will take place.
Absolutely. And it wouldn't be too much like, right, and here in my crazy mind, how crazy would it be for hotels and Airbnbs to offer discounts to traveling musicians, traveling bands, their engineers, if they're, especially these artists that are in and out of the country, year round, to, hey, here's a discount. You're going to use it anyway. You have to find a hotel. You have to find lodging and places to stay. But there's also bands that are, again, going to be taking away from these hotels if they don't get their act together, because you have fans now, or bands and musicians that are creating communities to say, hey, look, when you're in Texas and you're touring, let me know and you can come stay at my condo, no charge.
Yeah.
You can come stay at my place, no charge, because they know of that expense and they know how hard it is. And people are trusting. These are fans. People haven't met these artists before a day in their life, and they're trusting them to come, inviting them to come stay in their homes and to hey, here, I have a house that I rent out. You can stay there for a weekend. Don't worry about it. I've got everything taken care of. And that is going to pick up to where hotels eventually are going to have to catch up and say, oh, well, we can do this. And then it's too late. So I would advise, anywhere, or just people that have those abilities to do that, to help artists, in their touring or when they're in town, to let them know, like, hey, you have a benefit, or this, we can help you out a little bit.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I used to leave the key in the mailbox if I was out of town when a group was coming through and needed a place to crash, and house parties. House parties have picked up when venues, felt that they just couldn't afford to hire the acts, so they went to house parties. We always find a way to make it happen, but it sure would be great if we could get a full community consciousness backing it.
Absolutely. So before we go, is there any advice for, just one great piece of advice for aspiring artists, aspiring jazz musicians, whether they're recording or whether they're touring or whether they're, promoters even, whether they're a venue that, it's a jazz club, just something, either an encouragement or just some advice to the jazz aficionado, or that person that really wants to get into this business in any shape or form?
Follow your heart. Express your passion. Music is a great harmonizer. It opens doors to inspiration, creative expression, be it artistic design or physical and mental health. But follow your heart.
Excellent.
Express your passion.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Kate, for hanging out with us. And this will not be the last conversation we have. You have a mic here, and if you're ever in town, please let me know. And we must do this again.
All right, T. It's been so wonderful, as we both acknowledged. 17 years of emailing communication. Finally we talk.
Absolutely. And you guys, this has been another episode of In Tune with T-Mill. In Tune with T-Mill is powered by and recorded live at the Maitland Conservatory. Make sure you guys visit themaitlandconservatory.org. And this episode is produced by Sunshine Enterprises and PalisadeHills.net. Visit PalisadeHills.net for all your music needs. If you have a podcast, if you have a commercial, if you have a TV show, if you have a YouTube video and you need some royalty-free music, contact PalisadeHills.net, or especially I say this every week, but this week I can tell you, reach out to Kate Smith, and she has a plethora of artists that you could reach out to or find out how you can obtain a license for their music. You may have a commercial that you want some elegance, or you want some really cool jazz, some avant-garde. You can contact Kate and find out how you can get that in your commercial or for your music needs. Because again, music is not going anywhere. Music makes the world go round. Kate, thank you so much.
Okay, T. And that's Kate Smith Promotions. www.katesmithpromotions.com.
Excellent. And I'm glad you said that, because I almost forgot to ask. So I had it here on one of my pages, and I forgot to ask that for people to follow you. And you guys, if you go to her website, Kate Smith Promotions, make sure you maybe have a day off, because you're going to need some time to go through and just, it's like YouTube, but just jazz. And so you find one artist, you find one song, you find another song, you find another one, another. And before you know it, 8 hours have went by, because you just immersed yourself in this matrix of great music and great artists. And you start to find their stories, see their pictures, a lot of these things. And Kate, before we go, that's one thing that I miss as far as CDs and records are, I know we have Instagram and we have Facebook and we have videos, but there's something personal about an artist's album where you can go through and see the pictures, the liner notes, who recorded this, where did they record it, the thank yous, sometimes even the song lyrics, because you thought they said one thing and they said something completely different. So those type of things in liner notes and in CDs and records, even covers, record covers. I used to pick records just because of the cover. I didn't know what the music was or anything. The artwork.
Oh,
this looks pretty cool. I'll get this. I have no idea what it sounds like.
That's what I love about foreign grocery stores and labels.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent. So thank you guys for hanging out with us on this episode of In Tune with T-Mill.